Bonjour mes amis, je m'appelle Tito, je fais des vidéos sur les finances personnelles sur mon autre chaîne, mais sur cette chaîne je parle d'autres choses comme aujourd'hui où je vais revoir le film Ajakaju, Beast of Two Worlds. After many years on the throne, King Towobola is told that he will soon have to relinquish his crown if he's unable to produce a male child to succeed him. Seeing as his three wives repeatedly failed to bear him a son, the king marries a mysterious woman whose background cannot be traced in the hope that she will produce his heir. Ajakaju Beast of Two Worlds is directed by Odunlade Adekola and Adebayo Tijani. Now, first of all, I want to address those of you who've been in the comment sections of my other reviews asking for a review of this film, Ajakaju. I'm wondering if you've been asking so as to know if this movie is worth you going to go and see in the cinema. Because if that's the case, I'm like, this movie stars Odunlade Adekola. It's a Yoruba film. It's set in olden times, and he plays the Oba. You kind of know what to expect when, you know, all those things are in the formula. This review very easily could just be less than 5 minutes, and I could have just come here to say, have you seen Orisha or King of Thieves? If your answer is yes, I'd be like, okay, did you enjoy those films? If your answer is yes, then I'd be like, okay, then you probably enjoy Ajakaju, Beast of Two Worlds. But if your answer is no, then you probably will not enjoy this movie, Ajakaju, Beast of Two Worlds. My point is, I mean, once you've seen a film that stars Odunlade Adekola, where he's the Oba, and it's a Yoruba film, you pretty much know what to expect, and you're either in or out. So why you guys are asking for the review, I honestly don't know. Let me know in the comment section why you are insistent on me doing a review of Ajakaju Beast of Two Worlds. Anyway, here we are. It's also worth noting that this movie, it's at the premiere of this movie rather, a few weeks ago, that Bobrisky was where he won the title of Best Dressed Female, and that opened a whole can of worms. It really shone a spotlight on Bobrisky, who is now, you know, in police custody. He's doing time for 6 months for other charges, but the spotlight was really on him once that thing happened, and it caused a whole uproar in the Yoruba Nollywood and even the greater Nollywood space, right? Yeah, that was quite a moment in time in 2024 and in Nollywood. So it was basically at the premiere of this film that happened, and the producer of the film, Eniola Ajao, has really, you know, gone to the press and put out a few statements saying that it was a publicity stunt and it wasn't her intention for it to cause the fighting and acrimony that it ultimately caused. But yeah, that was quite interesting, and it felt like at some point the controversy around Bobrisky winning Best Dressed Female overshadowed the movie, and nobody wanted that, least of all Eniola Ajao. But fortunately, the film has been doing well. In the first 5 days of its release, it did over 100 million naira. So, and it's been doing well ever since. So thankfully, it wasn't overshadowed by the hijinks at the premiere. All that said, let's dive into it, guys, beginning with lay performance. Odunlade Adekola plays Oba Towobola, the king in this town, and he's unable to bear sons. And yeah, it's Odunlade as the king as usual. I mean, if you've seen him in one of these Yoruba epics playing a king before, you've pretty much seen him in this film. The only difference between his performance or his role in this movie and the one from Orisha or even King of Thieves is that Oba Towobola he's a bit more reserved. He's not as cantankerous and belligerent as the kings that Odunlade played in King of Thieves or in Orisha. Then Eniola Ajao plays Adaralewa, I believe her name was, and she's this strange woman who comes into the king's life to try and bear him at least one son. So this woman, Adaralewa, he finds her. We don't know her family history. She's a mysterious woman, but he marries her, and she ultimately does do the needful, but she's a very mysterious woman. Now, Eniola Ajao's performance in the film was okay. It was sufficient. Basically, she did what she needed to do. Nothing particularly stood out to me personally. She has lots of dialogue and lots of scenes with Odunlade Adekola's character in the film. But yeah, I really can't remember much that struck me from her performance. Somebody whose performance did strike me in the film was the mighty and awesome Sola Sobowale. And to be honest, she's really the main reason why I was a bit keen on seeing this film, because I'm a fan of hers. She delivers well in the trailer. She looked interesting and compelling, and she's just a really fantastic actress. She plays Iyaoba, the mother of the king, and in this movie, she was really convincing. She's trying to ensure that her son, that he gets what he needs, i.e. a male son, and she's running from pillar to post, ensuring that the Oloris, i.e. the queens, can produce a son. She's just trying to think out of the box to make sure that he gets a son, and she has her own agenda as well, if I can put it that way. And as usual, Sola Sobowale really does deliver. She's a bit flamboyant in the film. You can just feel all the emotions that kind of character would feel in that kind of situation. And there are just a few scenes that as I'm thinking about it now, that stuck out to me. You know, there's a scene where they go and see her in her room to talk to her, and she sits up in the bed. That was a memorable scene. She has a few memorable scenes in the film, and I think for me, her performance was the best in the movie. Next, we have Adedimeji Lateef, who is also in the film. He's this, is he a hunter? He's a local in the village, and his case is the opposite. His wife only produces sons, so he has a number of sons, and he's looking for a daughter, but you know, his wife is unable to birth him a daughter, right? And the funny thing is that they don't actually do very much with his character in the film. I can't remember the character's name, but he features in the trailer, and when you see the trailer, you look forward to that character and to Adedimeji Lateef's performance, but sadly, he wasn't in the movie for that long. And even worse still, the character that he plays is really of very little consequence. They don't do much with the character. In fact, at the point, he just disappears in the film and we don't know what happens to him. So that was a bit of a letdown. Femi Adebayo is also in the film, and to be honest, he's kind of at the root of the problems that they're facing in that village, because in that village, they're being terrorized by a beast, particularly the hunters. And I think Femi Adebayo's character kind of inadvertently caused the problem, right? So, like I said, he's a hunter, he's a greedy person, and it's his greed that kind of got the whole village into the sticky situation that they're in the film. He's not that prominent in the movie, to be honest. It's a supporting role, and he doesn't have that much screen time, which was a bit disappointing. And as a result, there isn't that much to evaluate concerning his character in the film. There are also some heavyweights in the movie that I'll just breeze through right now. Fathia Balogun is in the movie. Aigbe is also in the movie, and Bimbo Akintola. So the three of them play the Oloris. Those are the king's wives who are unable to bear him sons. And who else is in the film? Ibrahim Chatta is also in the movie. Ce que j'ai aimé. The animated introduction or opening sequence to the film, I felt was very nice. Ant Hill Studios is the studios behind this film. And one thing I credit them for is their creativity. Their films, for me personally, may have issues generally, but there will always be an element of creativity infused into their films. And I appreciate that about Ant Hill. And for this movie, it was that opening introduction where they give a bit of a backstory about the animal kingdom and the antelopes and all that. And that came in form of an animation. And I felt it was very impressive. An animation with a narration, like a voiceover, right? I really liked that. That was quite impressive. The acting in this film, even though it was giving like theater and stage, it wasn't too bad, right? It ranged though from melodramatic to rather impressive, but there were some good performances in the film. Like I said earlier, Sola Sobowale's performance impressed me, and there were one or two others here and there that I liked, especially as far as Yoruba Nollywood goes, because Yoruba Nollywood is a beast on its own, if I may use that pun, right? And as far as that world goes, the acting in this film was decent, and there were a few impressive performances. Finally, there were some clean shots in the film, some angles and some, visuals that I was like, oh, that's nice. So there are a couple of those in the film that I noticed and that I liked. However, I think that those were more a credit to the lenses and the cameras used than to the DOP or the cinematographer. But nonetheless, they're noteworthy, right? They're noteworthy, and I really found myself wondering, I wonder what lens they used for that particular shot. Ce que je n'ai pas aimé. The king had this nose piece that didn't really work for me, I think it was a costuming decision. I don't know if historically back in those days, you know, the kings in Yoruba Kingdom, had nose pieces like the one that Odunlade's character had. Was it up here or was it down there? I think it was down there at the bottom of the nostril. Anyway, I didn't like it. I found it to be a bit distracting. Something else I didn't like about the film is that it felt like the repercussions for certain characters' actions weren't intense or severe enough. It felt like the stakes in this film weren't high enough. Because, for example, Adaralewa, the latest wife of the king, or that the king takes to bear him a son, she's rather insubordinate to the king. She does a few things that, you know, you'd feel like, man, this babe should be locked up or she should be hanged or something. But everyone just treats her actions with a bit of levity. And that happens with a few other characters in the film. You feel like, surely this character should get a more severe punishment, or there should be higher consequences for these actions. But you don't really get that. And I think that took away from the tension in the film. There is tension in the film from one or two other things, largely from the fact that you're wondering how the king is going to produce a male child to succeed him before the deadline. So there's tension in that regard. But in terms of so many other subplots or other things in the story, that tension was lacking because it just didn't feel like the consequences for certain actions were there. It seems like as if a lot of things were just glossed over. Yeah. What else didn't I like? The costuming and the makeup in this film. Well, for the general characters, I felt could have been better, but particularly with this, the beast that's introduced in the film, the Ajakaju itself, right? Well, this is the point where you just have to accept or see this movie as a Yoruba Nollywood movie and not compare it to anything foreign or anything sophisticated. Because, you know, the image of the beast and, you know, how they present that creature in the movie, it really does give like stage and theater and all that. It's not particularly impressive. It serves its purpose kind of, but I mean, because we're just exposed to so much sophistication and technology now, you would expect a more intimidating, more beast-looking kind of beast, not like a human-looking kind of beast, if you know what I mean. Finally, the ending of this movie didn't necessarily work for me. I mean, there's the whole thing of the king producing a male child to succeed him before he's kicked out of the kingdom and replaced, right? To put it lightly, or to phrase it without giving too much away, I don't think we resolved that particular issue by the time the movie was over. I still had so many questions as to, okay, so is he still king or is he not king? Does he have a successor or does he not have a successor? And also the people of the town and the village, how do they feel about this conclusion to the king's issue, you know, his predicament? Because surely they have a say. Because in lots of these Yoruba epics, the villagers or the townspeople, they have a say, or they have a representative who, if they don't agree with what the king has decided, they come to the palace and they, you know, they voice their opinions, or they have some kind of like a revolt or like a coup or an uprising. There's just that, and that lends to the issue of the tension that wasn't existent in this film. You know, how did they feel? What was their say or their opinion to how the king decided to resolve his issue at the end of the film? So yeah, so those are some of the questions that I had by the time the movie was over. Qui devrait le voir? If you're a fan of Yoruba Nollywood films, I think you'll enjoy this movie, especially if you like those ones set in those olden times and where there's a palace and a king and he's looking for a successor and, you know, the Oloris, i.e. his wives, are stressing him out. If that's your bag, if that's your cup of tea, then I think you'll enjoy this film. Also, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, if you like if you like Tales by Moonlight, let me explain. If Tales by Moonlight was your jam back in those days, you may enjoy this movie as well, because, you know, there's a bit of the whole animal kingdom thing, and, you know, this person is like an animal by night and a human by day type of thing, and, you know, those things were prominent in those Tales by Moonlight stories back when we were kids. So if you don't mind seeing that kind of narrative on the big screen, then hey, you may enjoy this movie, Ajakaju, Beast of Two Worlds. In conclusion, this film kind of opened up my eyes to how Nollywood is really diversified, kind of, in terms of well, niches, right? And Yoruba Nollywood is, like I said earlier, just in a world of its own. Those of you who are more into contemporary, urban, and sophisticated movies, you may see this movie and raise your nose up at it. However, movies like this, like Ajakaju, Orisha, Jagun Jagun, and so on, these Yoruba Nollywood films set in olden times that look at or explore folklore, Yoruba folklore, they have a huge audience, not just in Nigeria, but in the diaspora across the world, and they do fantastic numbers. These aforementioned films were some of the biggest Nollywood films the years they came out. This movie is also on track to, it's done over 100 million naira. And in Nollywood, if your movie does over 100 million naira, you're in an exclusive club. Not that many films do over 100 million. And this movie did over 100 million in less than a week. And that's why they continue making these epics or these films set in these times, because there's a large audience for it. And as many of you know, the floodgates were opened a couple of years ago when King of Thieves came out in the cinemas and it did huge numbers. The floodgates opened and we just kept on seeing films like King of Thieves coming out on a yearly basis. And I think riding that wave is why we've seen this movie Ajakaju, Beast of Two Worlds. So yes, at the end of the day, it's either your cup of tea or it's not. You're either into Yoruba Nollywood films of this nature or you're not. I don't think this is the one that you want to experiment with, right? But if you're willing to, be my guest. But I think because there are so many stars in this film and because it's done so well in the cinemas, it will eventually get on streaming. And if you don't see it in the cinema, I guess you'll see it on streaming. Anyway, guys, I hope you're satisfied, especially those of you who've been requesting or who requested for this review. If you enjoyed this review, I really hope that you did. Do me a favor and like this video by clicking on the like button just underneath the video, and subscribe to my channel as well by clicking on the black subscribe button on this channel. I don't just do Nollywood movie reviews. I talk about other things. To check out some of my past reviews or some of the other things I do, you can click the card in the corner of the screen. I have the review of Ajoshepo, which I'll be seeing again this weekend, funny enough. That came out, it's doing well. I really enjoyed doing that review. I also featured a bit of the premiere in that review. You may want to check it out. You can click the card in the corner of the screen for it, or check the description box for the link to that review. And also this week, my friend's movie, Eniola Adebayo, her film Chemistry is coming out. First of all, I'm going to be attending a watch party with her, for the film. I'm looking forward to that. But that film, I will review it too, so look out for that. And look out for a bunch of the other reviews that I either have done or will be doing in the very near future. And also check out my podcast if you're into, podcasts. It's called the 30-Minute Podcast. Link to it in the corner of the screen as well. Thank you guys so much for watching this review. I will see you in the next one. Take care.